I was freshly graduated. I lost my job. I lost my housing because I lost my job. And this is actually when I started my practice. It's because it was COVID, everything was shut down, nobody was hiring. And I was not eligible for unemployment because I hadn't worked at that job.
Oh my
And I had
gosh.
just adopted a horse, and I found myself in North Salem, New York, in Westchester County. It's about, I think, 60 miles north of New York City.
Okay.
And at that time, there was a very high demand, very low supply of professional PEMF. So
Mm.
I think it's a combination of I needed this to happen to survive myself. And also, I saw an opportunity to really help and benefit the equine industry as I always wanted to do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stable Exchange podcast. Today, we are talking to Lucile from Propulsion Equine. Lucile had a pretty incredible make or break moment in her business early on in the pandemic that really left her with two different options. She could either look for a new corporate job after being laid off during the pandemic, or she could go all in on building her business offering PEMF services to trainers and barns in her local area. Lucile took the route of entrepreneurship and over the course of the next 5 years or so has built a truly incredible business where she now serves clients all over the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut area, following her clients all the way down to Wellington in the winter. We have worked with so many body workers and other practitioners and professionals in the equestrian industry on the service-based side. So I'm very excited for anyone who has been looking to build a service-based business in the horse industry, especially if you are a body worker or someone offering similar mobile services. I think Lucile's story of how she so smartly built these route optimizations into her business, hired a team to help her do what she does 365 days a year in multiple locations, and just her overall grit and determination, ambition, and motivation to just go all in on a dream when she really had no other choice, and it has been a huge success today. I'm very excited for you guys to hear her story, and I hope you all enjoy. So, Lucile, you started working in the horse industry as a working student about 16 years ago now. And I think so many of us in the industry got our start either at a barn where we took lessons or as a working student. So I'm curious how those initial years as a working student has given you the inspiration or impacted the business that you ended up starting today.
Definitely. My working student position started when I was 12 years old, and it was a big, big influence on my career. I actually wasn't really introduced to the horse industry until I picked up that position working at a riding school in Southern California in San Diego County. And that position included everything, from turning out, feeding, tacking up for lessons, taking care of horses in many ways. And at that point on, I knew in my heart that I wanted to dedicate my career to benefiting horses,
Wow.
to helping them in some way. I wasn't entirely set on how that was going to look at that point. I considered being a veterinarian. At that young age, I considered having a natural boarding facility for rescue and rehab horses.
Yeah.
So it definitely shaped my desire to have a career dedicated to helping horses from that young age.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I think, so many fellow equestrian business owners I talk to that are now maybe doing something a little bit different than they were when they first entered the industry. We all probably grew up thinking the only ways to work in the horse industry is to either be a trainer, be a barn manager, be a professional rider, or be physically working hands-on in the barn. So it sounds like you maybe thought that that could be the potential career path, but really wanted something more. And I know you went on to get a couple of different degrees. What led you to that path of equine science? Was there a particular person or a mentor that you met along the way, or did you just know you always wanted to help horses from a health perspective and then found this as the perfect path for you?
I think one could argue that I'm a pretty good example of it's possible to have a career in equine healthcare and equine science without going to vet school. And the veterinary school path is definitely an option. It's a very challenging one that requires a lot of investment.
Yeah.
And I think there might be this perspective in the equine industry that, being a veterinarian is the only way to have a career in equine healthcare. Uh, and I think I have used my degree. So I have a bachelor's in equine studies with concentration in equine science from Centenary University, New Jersey. And then I have a master's degree in equine performance health and welfare. And my classmates and I have been able to do a lot, I think, of very exciting things within the equine healthcare industry with
Mhm.
those degrees, including academia and research and, teaching within the industry, veterinary technicians. There have been a lot of really exciting jobs from that, or, including my own of working as a PEMF, red light therapy, and kinesiology taping practitioner. So I think I chose the science concentration
Mm.
right as a freshman at Centenary 10 years ago, believe it or not.
Wow.
I know.
That's
10 years
amazing.
ago, 2015, because I knew that healthcare would be one of the best ways to benefit horses within my career.
Yes. And then you went on to continue your schooling in the UK. Did you choose that particular program because it was one of the best out there, or was it also in combination with you wanting to travel and have a sense of adventure? What brought you to going to the UK for that?
Yes, so my master's degree, you're right, was at Nottingham Trent University in England. And it's actually a little bit of a unique situation because as a European citizen, I was born and raised in France for our audience.
That's right.
As a European citizen, living in England before Brexit, I actually had very, very cheap tuition for my master's because England was still in the European Union. Now, halfway
Mm.
through my master's, England experienced Brexit and left the European Union, and COVID shut down the whole schooling country. So it
Wow.
was a great plan that I did just in time because it is no longer
Mhm.
possible for a European citizen to get in-country tuition, essentially.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of a crazy story. So it sounds like you were really lucky to get to have that experience. When you finished all of your schooling and graduated with your degrees, did you know at the time that, or even as you were in school, did you know at the time that you wanted to have your own practice, or did you initially think you might join a clinic or a larger practice and be one of their practitioners?
I had a corporate job in
Okay.
equine marketing at an equine veterinary practice during grad school. So at that point, grad school was online, the job was online, everything was remote. This is peak 2020.
Yes.
Um, so my goal for pursuing the master's was to open the possibilities in the field of academia. And I actually did go on to teach equine studies as an adjunct at a university for a semester.
Wow.
Actually, my own alma mater, if that's how you pronounce that. I'm gonna pull the French card here. Alma mater, um, matter. I don't know. Anyway, so
We still don't know.
that was the goal for the masters. But just like everybody else in 2020,
Mhm.
everything got uprooted. All the plans I had, um, just kind of imploded. I lost my job. I was laid off my corporate job 2 weeks after graduating.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that had to be a bit of a punch in the gut.
Absolutely. I was freshly graduated. I lost my job. I lost my housing because I lost my job.
Wow.
And this is actually when I started my practice. It's because it was COVID, everything was shut down, nobody was hiring. And I was not eligible for unemployment because I hadn't worked at that job.
Oh my
And I had
gosh.
just adopted a horse. So I don't know if you knew all of that about me, but that was like,
No. No, your story actually goes much deeper than I even realized, to be honest. And I love that you brought that up because I think for so many business owners in and out of the industry, sometimes our businesses come as a result of wanting to solve a problem, or they come as a result of just saying a Hail Mary, like, I need to just dive in and do this now while I have the opportunity, or to give myself some income because there are no other options right now. And I had no idea that your business was kind of born out of one of those make or break moments.
It was really both. It was, I lost my job, my housing, no one's hiring, I need to find a way to survive. But it was also, those 6 years of studying equine health. And I found myself in North Salem, New York, in Westchester County. It's about, I think, 60 miles north of New York City.
Okay.
And at that time, there was a very high demand, very low supply of professional PEMF. So
Mm.
I think it's a combination of I needed this to happen to survive myself. And also I saw an opportunity to really help and benefit the equine industry as I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it feels weird to say right time at the right place, talking about 2020 and COVID, but it ended up working out really beautifully for me. I'm very fortunate about that.
Yeah, looking back, that seems to be a moment where it was maybe a big turning point for you, and it sounds like you're almost happy that you had that moment where you were kind of in this limbo because it gave you that spark or inspiration to start your business. When you decided you were going to go all in on PEMF, I have worked with practitioners when I was a barn manager. Even from our conversations, I know there isn't a ton of regulation in the PMF industry. And it sounds like you can purchase a machine and start practicing, but you chose the path of always continuing your education, doing research, and being really involved on that side of the continuing education as well. What was that spark for you that said, I want to continue to go deeper? Because I think sometimes once you start a business and you get really busy, it's really easy to just accept status quo, but you continuously seek more. Where do you think that comes from?
I honestly can't totally take credit for choosing to pursue my education for the business because I had completed both the bachelor's and the master's, and I was a certified AAVT equine veterinary assistant before I even started. Not long before. This all happened back to back. And we've done some continuing education since, added new modalities, and done the research and certification for that.
Mhm.
But for me, the education part, the advanced higher education really came even before starting the business, which you could argue gave me a leg up from day one of being a business owner.
Yeah, so you were kind of already headed down that road, and then it sounds like your business just seamlessly fit into that. You mentioned adding modalities. That's definitely something that I want to get into because I am curious kind of the strategy or necessity that goes into the decision making of continuously adding services and modalities. But I want to first start with a little bit more of the why behind your business. So when you first created Propulsion Equine, was there any strategy behind the name, or was it something that just kind of a spark that came to you in the middle of the night? Because it goes one way or the other for some people.
Thank you for asking. I feel like nobody ever gets the pun in the name. I don't get to talk about this very often, but the name is Propulsion Equine PEMF. And propulsion is professional pulsed electromagnetic field services.
Mm,
But if you
oh
look
my
at the whole
goodness.
word, propulsion is also a horse's ability and desire to carry itself forward.
Yes.
Fits really well for industry, I think. And we have the same name, same logo, never changed it. I still love it
Wow.
years later, so that's good.
That's amazing. It's very rare, especially starting out as a solo entrepreneur, to stick with the same branding that you
Mhm.
started with. But
Right?
we will get to your growth in a second. But I think it's really smart that you kept things the same because you have experienced some pretty incredible growth and now have a lot of great brand recognition in the industry. So I think it was probably a smart move that you stuck with what was working for you from the very start, because some people tend to overthink things as they grow and think that they need a big overhaul. But sometimes if it isn't broken, no need to try and fix it. And I love that you went into the deeper background on your name because the propulsion makes a lot of sense to me. I was initially thinking it was about the forward movement, but I actually didn't know the deeper meaning. So I love that there's a lot of strategy behind that as well.
Thank you.
Now, we've mentioned a little bit about your growth in the industry. And one of the big things is you now have a team of practitioners. It's not just yourself. So I know there's probably a lot that happened kind of in the in between from when you went from a solo entrepreneur to now growing your team. Can you talk us a little bit through what happened in maybe those first couple of years and what you did in the beginning phases to grow your consistent client base before deciding to add on another practitioner?
Okay. So I was very lucky. Again, right person at the right time in the right place. That in 2020, there was so much demand and virtually no supply
Mm,
that I actually went from unemployed, living in a loft, to having a full-time practice and being able to lease an apartment
wow.
within 3 months, from January to April 2021. And I was working nonstop, doing everything in the business by myself for 18 months. So from January 21 until June 2022. And then came the summer of 2022, I was like, this is a terrifying idea, but I need to hire somebody.
Yes.
I need to scale up because I am limiting my own business growth by
Mm,
trying to do everything myself and having a wait list that never moves, just keeps growing. Because I can
yes.
never, I, I'm only one person and I was doing everything, the accounting, the marketing.
Mm,
So in June of 2022, I hired my first associate. And even though we grew so fast, so much the first 2 years, it has since leveled out a lot. For
okay.
many different reasons that I'm very happy to get into if you like. But for the past couple years, we've had a very steady, very consistent, very predictable client base. And we are now, focusing on being very present and very dedicated to those loyal clients as opposed to trying to
Mm,
and conquer the whole industry. So
yes.
we also now have an office manager who takes care of our bookkeeping, accounts, some legal tax stuff. And that really frees me up to work with the clients and also run my other small equine business.
Yes, I want to get into your other small equine business because that I love that it is also partially interconnected to what you do with your clients. I think you were really smart in making the decision to outsource the admin so that you could stay front facing with clients because it can be really hard to decide. You know, a lot of us know that we need help. We just don't know what we should delegate in the very beginning. And it sometimes takes a little bit of trial and error and practice. So, was your first hire a fellow practitioner or someone who was going to take over the admin and be an office manager?
My first hire was a PMF practitioner,
Okay.
and we both still do a lot of scheduling, a lot of emailing session reports, a lot of scheduling, sending invoices. Um, and then just, I think, 5 months later in October, so 3 years ago, I hired the office person, Beth, who's
Wow.
still with us 3 years later, and I love that. So it was all within the same year. 2020 was the
Yeah.
realization that I need help. I need to scale my business if I want to keep growing and helping the equine industry as much as I want to.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible that that growth happened so fast and you acted so quickly to solve that problem. And it sounds like it's been working really well considering you still have some of the same team members that you started out with. So that's pretty phenomenal. Would you say, you know, your business is so location based, and I want to get into how you decided exactly which service areas you were going to offer. I know you work a lot in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, and then you also travel down to Florida. You started in New York. What brought the decision to expand outside of that area, especially as you were one person starting out?
It's a lot of driving. Uh,
Yes.
there, having a mobile-based business like an ambulatory PMF practice is great in terms of not having the overhead cost of
Mm,
of a physical business, a physical building is what I'm trying to
right,
say.
like a lease on a clinic
Exactly.
or brick and mortar. Yeah.
Exactly. So you save a lot of money that way, but you have to realize that your efficiency is about cut in half because you spent half
Mhm.
day driving. Some of my
Yes.
clients are 2, 3 hour commute into Brooklyn, up into Saugerties, into Connecticut, New Jersey. And then, Florida is a whole mile-to-mile commute. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's a lot of traveling, especially in the winter. These next 5 months, I'm about to be on
Mhm.
one big cycle of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Wellington, Ocala, and I just loop around 5 times from December to April. So
Wow.
an
That
extensive travel commitment
and a lot of logistical planning as well.
and a lot of expenses. There is no cheap way to
Yes.
do this. Yeah, it's a lot of commitment. It's not for everybody. It doesn't offer the best stability, but it does offer a lot of freedom and flexibility and travel opportunities, and all the benefits that come with being your own boss, of course.
It's true. We sacrifice balance to get to do what we love. I've seen on Instagram you have your red van. Do you still travel? I mean, really I was going to say coast to coast or around the country, but do you travel from the tri-state area to New Jersey and back in that van still?
Yes. So the way I save on all the travel expenses that come with traveling out of state, there's flights, there are rental cars, hotels,
Mhm.
Airbnb, is I stay in a camper van that is fully equipped with bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, even an office, everything. But again, there's no perfect solution and there's no easy or cheap way to do this because the van was very expensive to purchase
Yes.
and very expensive to maintain and not cheap on gas either. So, at the end of the day, I can't say for sure that I made the smarter business decision by buying a van. It will all depend on, how much I can get back when I sell him, which he's actually for sale right now. So I have an update on you soon, but you can try to find ways to make a mobile based business more affordable, but it's
Mhm.
going to be very expensive either way, at least in my experience.
Yeah, well, because, especially if you go down to Florida for the whole season or for an extended amount of time at some point, you would have to have some sort of rental anyway. So I could see how the van was a good idea from the start.
In
And
theory, it's a great concept. In practice,
well, yeah, and when you first started your business, I don't know if that's around the time you purchased the van, but I feel like from 2020 to 2022, van life was blowing up on Instagram. You honestly could have had a whole side hustle as a van life influencer during that time if you really wanted to.
influencer. That's so funny. I could have, yeah.
So I'm curious to know when you are traveling from the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area down to Florida, are you following clients who are going down to Florida for the season, or do you have a completely different client base that you're going to see when you go down to Florida?
Oh, that's a good question. It is actually 99% or New York, New Jersey, Connecticut clients who we follow for the winter. And
Mhm.
this is part of the bigger mentality of we want to show up and provide the best possible care for our loyal clients and their horses.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
means following them to the Florida show circuit for the winter. And there's actually not an attempt to create a new client base in Florida. I just want to be where my current loyal clients need me.
Yeah, I love that because it is such a way to kind of say thank you in a way to your clients for being so loyal is to just meet them exactly where they're at when they need you. So I love that. And there is something to be said for not always looking to grow because sometimes when we try to expand super fast or grow beyond what's attainable for us, the quality goes down. So it's almost like you want that quality over quantity, which I think makes a lot of sense because you are so client focused as well. So I'm curious, so many body workers that we've worked with in the past who are, and I know you don't do, equine massage, you're more on the PMF side. A lot of practitioners in the body work space that we talk to who are very first starting out in their business. They've maybe just formed their LLC, they're putting their services together, have a really hard time figuring out if they should be charging a travel fee, what that travel fee should be. And you expanded outside of that small localized area really early on. Did you implement travel fees in the beginning? And how do you think about that now?
We have some travel fees for clients who are a long drive away, that is split between several farms. Usually, if they're more than like 45 minutes to an hour. And beyond that, we also have no choice but to schedule strategically and geographically. We do up to 265 sessions a month, and as you know, those horses are very, very spread out.
Oh my gosh.
We
That's
have
a
we have
lot of sessions.
monthly yes, a monthly schedule that is very consistent, repeats itself every month, and to keep it as stable as possible. And some of these horses we see twice a month. So when I say 265 sessions, it's not 265 individual clients or horses. Some of these we see twice a month, so it's a little bit of a smaller client base than it might seem. But there's so many of them and they're so far apart, and we want to be really good about keeping them on a regular, consistent schedule
Yes.
that we have to schedule by county and by state and by city.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Like we mentioned before, so much logistical planning goes into this. This might be a little bit of a curveball, but I think it's helpful to ask if you were in the shoes of someone just starting their business, either in the PMF specialty side or even the bodywork side, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give them when they're thinking about the logistical planning of their sessions? Because you seem to really have mastered this completely.
To keep it on the theme of geographical scheduling, I would say find a niche where there are a
Mm.
lot of horses per square mile. So if I can give you like ideal world example, that's Ocala, Florida, or Wellington, Florida, or Lexington, Kentucky, or North Salem, New York. The flip side of that is these very populated horsey areas in this day and age in 2025 are very likely to already be oversaturated with PMF practitioner, and also
Mm.
for horse owners and riders who may not have much of a education or background in equine
Yeah.
science who buy their own machines and do it for them. So it is a little bit difficult for me to give this advice 5 years down the road because the PMF market has absolutely boomed coming out of COVID. Um, and now being in the right place is more difficult because there's not really a right time anymore.
Mm.
The curve, so for someone who would start today, I might actually recommend finding an established practice and
Yeah.
teaming up with an existing practitioner and finding a mutually beneficial arrangement that way.
Yeah, that's smart. It makes a lot of sense. It's funny. We found that even in Farm and Fur as well, we were kind of at the right place at the right time, a little bit similar to you in the sense that we also started in 2020. And at that time, so many people unfortunately were laid off from their jobs, but also had this horse business idea on the back burner that they finally had the time to start, or they had a little bit of stimulus money coming in and finally were able to make the investment in a rebrand for their side hustle. So I think there's a little bit of right place and right time and luck that can happen in the very beginning. And now, like you said, it is a little bit harder to kind of enter the industry as a brand new practitioner. We've talked a lot about your growth location wise. I want to talk a little bit more about how that happened from a marketing perspective. So much of the growth in the horse industry happens from referrals and word of mouth. I'm curious if you attribute that to a lot of your growth or if you implemented any marketing strategies early on that led to that.
Absolutely. Word of mouth and referrals from our early, again, loyal, supportive clients were the bulk of our business growth. It was mostly, friends talking to their friends, trainers talking to their clients.
Yeah.
And that was, I want to say, at least half of the new clients that we got. Another huge source of leads for new clients has been Instagram, social media in general, but especially Instagram. And I used to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort into our social media marketing. Not so much anymore now that we have this very consistent, loyal client base. We never did any paid ads. We've sponsored, I think, 2 or 3 horse shows over the past 5 years. So paid marketing
Wow.
has been a very, very tiny part of client recruitment for sure. It's been a lot more recommendations, referrals, and word of mouth.
Mhm. That's amazing. I mean, every business owner's dream is to grow by referrals and just organic reach on social media. So it's incredible that that came super naturally for you guys. When you first created your Instagram and kind of put those first couple posts up, do you remember at the time what you were specifically posting. I know this is a very specific question, but what I'm hoping to get to is, were you posting a lot of client transformations, value-based content? Because I know a lot of people first starting their business sometimes struggle with identifying what they should focus on in their marketing from the very beginning.
I definitely struggled. I definitely posted some things that were very irrelevant, I'm sure. Honestly, the fact that this is a whole 5 years ago and that I've had the Instagram account from day one, I'm sure I would cringe very hard if I looked back at my first post.
We all would.
But from what I remember, it was definitely testimonial heavy. I was really trying to leverage these
Mhm.
first happy clients that brought me a lot of referrals. It was
Mhm.
a lot of interpreting and summarizing published PMF research studies, which ties into my other business. I know we're going to talk about
Yes, yes. Okay,
but
love
it was
that.
a lot of trying to educate the equine community by being the translator between the fancy research
Yes.
and then, everyday barn talk.
Oh, that's so you really put it in layman's terms for your clients and your audience, which I think is so important. I
Yeah.
love that. That's very, very cool. And starting off strong at the beginning with that value-based content also works really well to establish you as an authority and an expert. So I think that combined with the testimonials makes a lot of sense. So I want to get into your other business. You do a lot of freelance journalism still in the equine healthcare space. Talk to us a little bit about that, how you got started. Was it as a result of wanting to just continue going deeper with research based off of your schooling? And is it something that you see as directly tied and related to what you do with your propulsion clients?
Yes, to that last part, 100%. I write articles about all aspects of equine healthcare, nutrition, sports medicine, internal medicine, lameness, rehab. And I love when I'm working with a propulsion equine client,
Mm.
issue about their horses being discussed, and I can say, hey, I wrote an article about this that I think could give you some insight. Let me email you the link with your horse's session report. I love when I can do that.
Yes.
There's also a lot of veterinarians that I collaborate with in the real world for Propulsion Equine when we work on cases together that have areas of expertise that I can then interview
Mm.
them on that topic to write an article. So I feel like my two businesses are really interconnected
Yeah.
and work well with each other. And to answer the first part of the question of, what motivated me to start this and how did it happen, I actually published my first article in December of 2018. I think that's seven
It's a
years ago.
long time ago. Yes.
Yeah, so I actually started my freelance equine healthcare journalism career before graduating from anything, and before starting my PMF practice. And it used to be tiny. It used to be a couple articles a year. It's still relatively small compared to propulsion equine. I think the most I've done is 54 articles in a year, which keeps me busy for
That's
sure.
still a lot of articles.
An
I
article.
don't know what the normal average would be, but that sounds like a lot to me to do on top of seeing 200 and something clients a month through
Well, half of that,
propulsion.
about 130, if my math is correct. I do have, luckily, that full-time associate, but there is no doubt in my mind that I could not do this by myself at this point. There is no way,
Yes.
for sure. My team is the reason this is all possible.
It sounds like over the years, you've probably had to make some tough decisions or some tough calls either to add something new to your business or to maybe change something that wasn't working. Can you remember one thing in particular that maybe was a big turning point for you or really got you thinking about your business a little bit differently or a hurdle that you really had to push through and overcome?
Okay. Yeah. So as you know, PMF, pulse electromagnetic field, is the bulk of our business, the bulk of our sessions. But over the years, we've incorporated a couple of complementary modalities that work really well with PMF and help, extend and prolong and even improve, enhance, I should say, the benefits of our PMF work. And that first modality was massage gun therapy. And we bought some fancy medical grade massage guns. We did the Superior Equine Therapy LLC training certification course. Uh,
Okay.
we used the massage guns at the same time as the PMF. The horses loved it. It was great for, I think, a year and a half. And then what most people don't realize is the massaging head of the massage gun provides percussions, which feel good and are beneficial to the tissue. However, the handle just vibrates. And it turns out that if you handle a vibrating tool all day, every day for a significant amount of time, you're going to get carpal tunnel syndrome. And in my case, I got radial
Wow.
nerve damage from the massage gun. And pretty much my doctor said, that's it, you're not doing this anymore overnight. And luckily, massage gun, we don't charge for it. It was, incorporated into the session. It wasn't the bulk of the session, but it was still an extra that clients expected, that horses enjoyed, and that we really liked the results of.
Mhm.
And at that point, I attended a conference, the Association of PMF Professionals, AOPP, and there's a very famous equine chiropractor, Dr. Wendy Corin, who
Okay.
of her business is Equiline LLC, and she did a presentation on the benefits of incorporating red light therapy into PMF sessions.
Mm.
And I had, learn a little bit about red light therapy in grad school as well. And I did some more research on it, read the studies, and then ordered some red light equipment. And we have replaced massage guns with red light, which
Wow.
has absolutely no side effects to the handlers at all. Actually, really love red light and PMF together. So that was a time when felt like I was a little bit backed into a corner and had to think of my feet and come up with an
Yes.
alternative pretty fast. And it's worked out really well.
Wow. Red light therapy is something I see often. So it seems like it was a really smart decision to add that. And that must have been quite a shock to realize the physical repercussions that the massage gun would have on you, because I imagine so much of the research that you do into the modalities that you add, you're thinking about how they will impact your horse or your clients, not necessarily thinking about the impact that they will have on you. So that's interesting.
I know your choice of words is so perfect. Repercussion and impact when talking about massage guns is like actually perfect. I didn't even mean to. That's
And
great.
I think I remember seeing that massage gun when we did your shoot a couple years ago,
Yes,
because that
that's
was
right.
about 2 or 3 years ago now. And I
Yeah,
think we did do a couple of photos with the massage gun. It reminded me of a Theragun. And it's funny that you
yes.
mentioned that, because even when I use a Theragun like on myself, the vibration is uncomfortable to hold. So I can imagine holding on to that for a long period of time,
And
day
massage
in and day
guns
out.
are still great for the recipient. I'm absolutely not, speaking negatively of them. For the horses, they were great. For
Yeah.
us, we're holding the vibrating handle for, 8, 10 hours a day, every day.
Yes.
It's too much and it will wear down your body.
Yes, and your job always will depend on you to be able to physically show up and do that job. So I know you also offer K-taping and red light therapy. So would you say the PMF, red light therapy, and the K-taping are the three primary modalities that you use in a session?
They're the three primary and the only three that we use.
Okay. And when you made the decision to add the K-taping, did you decide to add that because based on your research, it would be really beneficial and complementary to what you were already doing? Or did you add that because it was something that your clients were asking for? And the reason why I ask is because I know a lot of people struggle with figuring out how to decide how to differentiate their offerings based on what maybe they want to offer versus what clients are specifically asking for.
That's a very good question. And it was a little bit of both. We definitely had some clients who were asking for kinesiology taping, some because their chiropractor did it and they wanted their horse to receive it more frequently. So, when they had their chiropractic adjustment
Mhm.
at their monthly PMF session. And some of it, I was writing an article about rehab and interviewed a veterinarian about the benefit of different rehab modalities and sports therapies. And Katie was brought up, and then I dug into the research.
Yes.
I went to another seminar that covered it, and then, did the certification and training through Sozo Equine, and then launched that a few months later.
Wow. So it sounds like it was the perfect complement to what you were already doing. I love that.
We love Katie.
So I want to start to wind down our conversation talking a little bit less about the business side and a little bit more about the impact of horses on our business, because so much of us get into the industry out of our love specifically for either a special horse in our life or horses in general. And I'm curious how your introduction to horses at an early age sparked your passion for working in the industry, even beyond being a working student? I want to kind of get to the core of what horses mean to you and the impact on your business.
That's a really sweet question. Um, my entire journey, whether it's the education or the career or the business, was definitely came from a deeply rooted love of horses. And, my own horse in particular, of course, Claire. I adopted my first horse when I was 21. And she was retired. She had a terminal condition, and I knew that I was, her soft landing.
Wow.
And at that point, I had loved that horse for 7 years. So it was a very easy decision to bring her home and
Yes.
keep her comfortable for as long as I could with PMF and KT.
Mm.
She passed away 3 years ago, and I think she was it. She was my horse of a life.
Yeah.
So I keep her memory alive with my work and my business, and she definitely was and still is an inspiration and a driving force behind Propulsion Equine.
I love that. That it's so special, and it sounds like your specialties were really the perfect fit for what she needed. And I'm sorry to hear that. That's pretty recent. I didn't realize that she
Yeah,
passed away
November
only 3 years ago.
8th. This is the anniversary this week, actually. November.
Oh my gosh!
It's
Wow.
realized.
Well, it sounds like she was very, very lucky to have you.
She was one loved horse, that's for sure. She was great. I was
Yeah.
lucky to have her too. She was the sweetest mare.
Yeah. I know sometimes mares can get a bad rap, but I've always found them to be
I'm a mare
super
person.
sweet.
All the way.
Agreed. You just have to connect with them in a little bit of a different way than a gelding.
Fair enough.
So I really would love to know, at this point in your business, if you were to really put yourself in the position of a fellow equestrian entrepreneur, what is the biggest piece of advice you would love to give them? And what is the biggest lesson from your journey that you would want them to walk away with and remember?
Okay. I feel like a lot of people are scared to start their own business in the equine industry or any other industry because there is this fear that there are no guarantees. You don't have a steady paycheck.
Yes.
You may not be able to pay your bills every month, and that is understandably terrifying to think about. However, the way that I like to think about it is I've had a job. I've had a steady 9 to 5 with a paycheck, and I have lost that job pretty much overnight. And so have many other people during COVID, as we all realized. However, I have 200 something clients, and it is very unlikely that all 200 will wake up one day and fire me. So even though this is not the popular opinion, I actually feel like being a business owner provides more job security than having a salaried position. And there also comes a lot of freedom and flexibility, and there can be a lot of quality of life with having a business.
Yes.
So the biggest lesson I've learned is to not be afraid of the perceived downsides of trading your day job for entrepreneurship and becoming a business owner. It is what you make it. And I actually find that it has, now that it's steady and we're over the hurdle of, oh my gosh, I lost my job and my house and no one's hiring, what are we going to do? Looking back 5 years down the road, this 100% was the right decision. It's made a huge positive impact in my life. And I would like to think that I've been able to help horses and horse owners and the equine industry in more ways than I ever could have, going a different career path.
Okay, I love that you answered this question that way. It's a bold answer, but I think it's so important to remember because so much of what we see and hear, sometimes you just hear about either the very best parts of entrepreneurship or the most frustrating parts of entrepreneurship. And I love that, despite all of the challenges and hurdles that you may have had along the way, you still don't regret your decision to starting your own business. And you're so right. There's that saying that I see all over Instagram all the time is you're willing to work, 90 hours a week for yourself or for someone else. Do you know that saying that I'm talking about? Like you'll always be hustling for someone, so it might as well be for yourself. And
Yes.
it does bring so much, flexibility in your schedule. So I love that you answered it that way, because you're right. When you have your own business, you might be in a scenario where you could potentially lose clients or have months where your income is a little bit less secure than others, but you could also find yourself in that scenario with a corporate job as well, never being in control really of your own growth and your salary. So I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Lucile, for coming on. And I just know that all equestrian entrepreneurs in general, but especially those working on the practitioner side of things in PEMF or bodywork, are going to take a lot away from this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. It was my pleasure to participate. I'm honored to have been a guest on your podcast.